Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to give you a quick update on my orchids since this is the dead of the winter and my Clowezias are either spiking or in bloom right now. So the three plants in front of me, this is a Clowesia rosea, and this is a Clowesia Rebecca Northen, and this is a cross between Clowesia Grace Dunn and Clowesia rosea. So this one in the center is the offspring of these two. Well, not these exact two, but these two crosses. So this is 100% rosea. This is 75% rosea, and this Grace Dunn is 50% rosea, and the rest is Vartsvitsi. And I was really hoping to have all three of them at their peak bloom at the same time, but so that we can look at them and then contrast and compare, but obviously that's not happening this year. See, this one is in spike, this one is on its way out, and this one is on peak, at its peak. So let's start with the one at its peak. Look how gorgeous the flowers are. The frilled lip, the green top of the column, the striped throat on the lip, and of course at the end of the lip, the deep orange spot. And the overall presentation is just cute. But cuter is this Rebecca Northen that also has the greens and oranges and frills and stripes, but this is just overall much rounder than the Grace Dunn, and the Grace Dunn has much more pointed lateral petals than the Rebecca Northen. And also the Rebecca Northen, this specific one, grapefruit pink, is much more less open. It looks like a ball from the side compared to the Grace Dunn, which is a little bit more open. But neither of them is as flat as, say, some Cattleyas. So those are the Clowezias, and I have another Rebecca Northen in the back and another rosea up on top. Oh, one last thing about these, other than the visible differences, is the scent. Both of them have the typical Clowesia, rosea, or I guess the citrusness, medicinal, but more citrus, this beautifully scented scent. But to my nose, Rebecca Northen is a lot more gingery than the Grace Dunn. Okay, one last thing before I move on. One cautionary tale about Rebecca Northen, actually a mistake I did, was when the other subalbs were blooming, and I couldn't really help it but watered it. Just splashed some water because the subalbs were getting a little bit shriveled. Some spikes were developing, some were blooming. But soon after I watered it, the blooming spikes, the flower lasted a lot shorter than the ones without watering. And the developing spike, when they finally developed, the distance between flowers, the length of internal got a lot longer. So the overall presentation wasn't as nice and clustered. So something to keep in mind is that definitely refrain from watering them when they are in the winter, when they're not leafed. These three species, well, those two species, rosea, they really came from a place with distinct dry season. Unlike those two that, I guess, they're from the Amazons. The one in the back is Catasetinae Ivaniae. This one is the Catasetinae denticulatum. They're from the Amazons. Also, Amazon, of course, also have a dry season, but maybe it's not as pronounced. But both of those still have their leaves and have not been watered for a long time. And despite being a little bit shriveled, the denticulatum is really not shriveled much, and they're doing fine. And so I don't know what their deal is. Maybe, hopefully, they will start pushing out a new growth soon. And they're not dropping their leaf. Their leaf has no sign of yellowing, especially on the denticulatum. But some of the other ones I have, that one is a Catasetinae cerroides. This is a complex Momodes hybrid. And the two in the back, that one is a Catasetinae fimbriatum, Catasetinae sanguinea. Both of them, all of them are in sound sleep, and hopefully they're dreaming good dreams. And last Catasetinae, but not least, this is quickly becoming my favorite. This is Cycnodes Wine Delight. Look, a new growth. and it's only late January. But this is known to have a shorter dormancy period, so that's also expected. I love this cross. I just can't get enough of it. The overall presentation of the flower, the scent, the color, overall presentation of the plant, it doesn't get bulky or awkward like some of the Catasetinae when they're in clusters. It doesn't get leggy and fall over like some of the Cycnokis. This one just, I love it. I can't get enough of it. I love it so much. Okay, so those are some of my Catasetinae, and moving on to my Cattleya Aliance. So, this is Cattleya, usually specialist species usually start to grow about this time of the year. Despite, it being the dead of the winter, as soon as the days start to lengthen after winter solstice, usually, at least in my experience, it starts to push out new growth. And first of all, this is one complex hybrid, of course, that's not following the rule. They're just growing all the time. This is George King's Serendipity. This one's really also blowing my expectation out of the water because look at the spice. Look at the spike. It finished growing, well, it didn't finish. It got to this size within probably 2-3 months from that size. Isn't that impressive? It just loves to grow. And of course, there's a new growth over there. And this is a Protheckia radiata. I had this one before, but I didn't really like the scent on my previous one. It wasn't as strong as I had hoped, and people say that the individual scent might differ. So I got a new one. It's a seedling, so probably will be a couple years before it blooms, but it's a summer bloomer anyway. And one of the other complex hybrid that I have is this Horse of Paradise, and this new growth is midway with a spike coming through. I mean a sheath, but I know this plant and it's big enough, so this one probably has a couple flowers in it. I hope so, and that will be really nice. But not just even the complex hybrids, the species are also pushing out some new growth. I've drastically trimmed my collection of Cattleyas over the past year because there are just so many of them. I can't keep up with the watering. I only kept a few that I either really wanted to see their flower, or they're more famous for being finicky to grow, and I want to prove to myself and others, but mostly myself, that I can grow them. So this is a Daliana aurea, and look at the new root. And also look at the new growth. Isn't that nice? And also in the back, that's a Cattleya Wortswickii. Also, did you know that the Wortswickii in Cattleyas has a different spelling, at least I don't know if it's the same person, different spelling as the Clowesia Wortswickii. The Clowesia Wortswickii doesn't have the C, but Cattleya Wortswickii had the C towards the end. I had no idea. I thought they were the same. In any case, that one is working on a new growth over there, and this one is also working on new growth over here. I got those seedlings from Orchid Heroes a month and a half ago, and so far so good. And in this community pot is my Cattleya velutina. This is an extremely finicky bifolia species. I've killed it once before, but I really wanted to smell the flower. It's rarely available, and I've never seen a blooming sized one. Other than, I'm assuming you can find them at some orchid festivals, but I've never seen one. So I got a few seedlings from Orchid Heroes, and so far they are pushing on new growth and also growing some roots. And when this one blooms, hopefully this will be, well, the flower is kind of unique looking among Cattleyas, and it's kind of this golden bronze color, and also it's supposed to be intensely fragrant, so I can't wait for that. But for now, I only have those little growths to satisfy my curious mind, but I'll take it. You see another growth there and some new roots, and as long as they're growing roots and pushing on new pseudobulbs, that's good. And as long as they're healthy and getting bigger and bigger every year, that's good. And maybe in a few years' time, I can start dreaming about actual flowers. And speaking of dreaming about flowers, I have a Cattleya seedling that I bravely got last year about this time, and it pushed out 2 new growth over the past year, and it grew some new roots recently, but it also had some spider mite damage out of all the other pests in Cattleya's spider mites damage. But so far so good, and here's another root, a couple back there, but this one is at least 3 years away from I can even start dreaming of having a sheath, not to mention actual blooms. Okay, so those are the Cattleya species. Ooh, what Cattleya species? These are from a Samialba walkeriana, and if you can see this growth in the shade, this growth, that's from a nobilior, and it's still kind of early to tell if that's gonna be a flower spike or just a pseudobulb, but this is the right time for nobiliors to flower, so hopefully that's a flower spike. And so those are my Cattleya species. And moving on to some of the other species in the Cattleya Aliance, I have this big mount of Rincolaleia. Essentially Rincolaleia, just, Digbiana and Glauca and their primary hybrid aristocrats. And I have all 3 of them on this mount. And it's kind of messy, but the bigger leafed ones, they are Digbiana. The smaller leafed one, like, you can't quite tell that one, and that one, those are Glauca, and this specific one with the sheath is Aristocrat. But let me just quickly show you some of the new growth, because spring new growth, they always represent hope. Here's one, and there's one in the back. That's 2, and that's another one. That's 3, and those 3 are on one plant. The third one is kind of stagnating. I don't know what's happening to it. Maybe this one will abort or stop growing, but at least it's growing a lot of healthy roots. And on another plant, let me see. Oh, here's one growth. If you can't see it, you probably have to take my word for it. And here's another growth. That one is pretty obvious, hopefully. Well, it might not be obvious, but I've seen it every single day, so it's obvious to me. That's on another plant, and on another plant here, there's 1 growth, 2 growth, and there's 1 in the back. So those are doing well, but not so well for my Glauca, because I think for a lot of people, Glaucas are more versatile and grow better, but in my experience, they don't grow as robust roots, and they grow actually slower. I don't know why. Maybe because it's too hot for them where I put my mount. But in any case, this is the best growth of my Glauca, and you see there's an opening and there's a sheath poking through. Also, it's too early to tell if that sheath's gonna flower, but if it flowers, this is also the right season of the year. And next to it is my Aristocrat. So in the sheath, that's another sheath. This is a double sheath. When I first saw the shadow in the sheath, I was thrilled because this particular plant has gone through a horrible, tragic, well not tragic, but very harsh year. It was very hot, with very hot conditions, a lot of sun, all virtually not many viable roots, but still pushed out a flower spike. That's what I thought until I realized it's a double sheath. That's the sheath in the sheath as a shadow, not a flower spike. So I think both of his parents, they don't have double sheath. I don't know why this one has double sheath. So if you can tell me why, I would much appreciate it. And hopefully this sheath will eventually flower. And that's also the case I see on my other big mount of Aristocrat. Like the most promising sheath all look like double sheath. And of course there's new growth happening right there, and new roots, so that's always good. But this plant, this Aristocrat, is a very big. So there's no reason why this one can't flower, and you know the pseudobulbs are plump. Yeah, I don't know. So those are my Rhyncholallias, and let me take you to my Brassavolas and finish off the Cattleya part of the update. As you may know, I love Brassavolas. I have quite a few species. This is a perennial, and that's a appendiculata. And those three, that's, shoot, I'm blanking on the name. It's Brassavola. Oh no, I don't remember the name anymore. What a shame. Shame. Anyway, so those are seedlings I got over the past year. They're probably still a couple of years away from blooming. And on this mount, I have an out-of-season bloom from tuberculata and another perennial, and some not so well appendiculatas, and a great appendiculata here. And with new growth, where's the growth? That's a new growth. I don't know if you can see it, but behind those three pseudobulbs, that pointy thing in the back. And look at the new fat, white, healthy roots, and the green, nice root tip. I love it. Okay, so that's my Cattleya Aliance. Ooh, and of course my Brassavola nodosa, and one very sad looking suboifolia. And this one in bloom, this one is of the clones Panama Soiree. I don't look at those, when you first see those roots, you'll be like, ugh, yuck. That's what I first thought. And they're not as cleany and healthy and, you know, nice as the regular nodosa roots. But then I was like, what did I do that's to deserve this? And then I went to Autumn's over the holidays, and on their Panama Soiree, their roots are also like this. So that made me feel better. I was like, it's probably not me, hopefully. It maybe it's just this clone with very not vigorous roots. But this other clone I have, Masmahor, it has great roots and has a new spike coming there, and there's one in the back too there. But some other peculiar thing is this spin spike is pushing out another bud. Could be branch, but probably another bud. And I don't usually see this, you know, once they flower all together simultaneously, that spike is done. I've only seen this at one of my previously owned triploid nodosas. And man, I hated that triploid. In general, I don't like triploid orchids. I don't understand, well, I kind of do, but I don't understand why people breed them. It's such a waste of everything. And those plants are so not vigorous, at least the one I had. And, you know, we all appreciate good blooms, of course, but don't you also want a great plant that's easy to bloom, that can get you to that beautiful bloom so that you don't have to babysit all the time? Anyways, that one had a branched spike, so I'm really hoping this is not those triploid. But from what I heard, Masmahor is the breeding stock from H&R orchids. And they really like making tetraploids and sometimes triploids, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But regardless, Masmahor, this specific plant and this flower on its way out is great. It's big, it's fragrant, it's long lasting, it's perfect. It's so good. Okay, so that's my Cattleya Aliance. And the last group I want to show you is my Australian Dendrobiums. And the most famous of all Australian Dendrobiums is probably Dendrobium kinianum. That's two over there. They're both Dendrobium kinianum. See the huge variation? That one is so tiny and that one is so much bigger. And if I get closer with my hand at scale, you see how tiny this one is and how much bigger this one is. And they usually like a cooler winter rest to bloom. Like they need colder temperatures, so I put them closer to my window. Since, you know, cold drafts, wind, this corner get much colder than the rest. So hopefully this spring I'll see them bloom. I also have some other lesser known Dendrobiums, Aussie Dens. These two are Dendrobium tetragonum, and it got its name because of a squared shaped pseudobulb. Isn't that cool? This one is a Dendrobium mulum, something like that. I forgot. This is a more delicate looking flower that's pretty small. It stays small, and I believe this one actually, if you see this as the previously spent spike, so it might have flowered, and that's a newer cane. So maybe this will flower for me sometime in the spring. Who knows? And that is a primary hybrid between Kineatum and Falcorostrum, and Kineatum, Falcorostrum. I have 4 of them, and I have 4 of them because I really was worried about that I killed them, and I don't find them very easily. So when I found them, I got quite a few. They're supposed to be really, really sweetly fragrant, intensely fragrant, and they are native to a more cooler and moist beech forest, like BEECH, beech forest, in eastern parts of Australia. And so that's so I'm trying to provide that kind of environment for them. My apartment is more like a desert, not a cool, temperate rainforest kind of setup. But I also have some moss on top of the pot so that it reminds me that I should keep them moist. And you see this one's growing some nice roots. And that one's previously bloomed, so hopefully this one will bloom for me sometime in the spring. Yeah, hopefully they're gonna do okay. And this one is a Dendrobium grassicale. Previous bloom spike, so hopefully sometime when it gets warmer, it will flower for me. This one, from what I read, is more free flowering than some of the others, and it just have sprays of yellow flowers. Not huge, but yeah, it's another species. And here is a Dendrobium jonesii, I believe, and it wasn't doing well. It lost some leaves, but look at this: 1 root, 1 growth. Am I grateful? Yes. Am I like, can't you just give me more roots? But they usually grow more roots with a new growth, so hopefully this will pick up. And this is actually my first Aussie Den to grow new growth, and they are usually more seasonal, and they start pushing out new growth in the spring, and so this is so expected, and I'm just really hoping they keep doing well. And I also have the other famous Aussie Den, Dendrobium speciosum. This big leafed one in the front is the subspecies speciosum. The 2 in the back are subspecies pedunculatum with longer peduncles, and that just means the distance between the first flower and the base of the flower spike is kind of long, so the flowers aren't all crowded within the leaves, and that gives a better presentation. But the con for these subspecies that they're usually just white flowers instead of the typical yellow ones you see. But regardless, this species takes a long time to flower from seeds. Some people say 10 years. So I got this one that's its blooming size. You see previous spikes, and the one in the back, that's also a blooming sized, but that's the back bulb division. And these are seedlings. But regardless, they're growing a lot of roots, and the seedlings actually really also already grasped really tightly onto its pot. So that's good. But are they gonna flower this year? I don't know. Am I holding my breath? Probably not. Also, there are big plants, and yeah, I just want to have them for the sake of having them. Oh yeah, and I have this Kineatum in bloom. And also, of course, I usually imagine the Kineatum bloom to be a little bit more closely spaced, but it could just be another variation within the species. Alright, I think that's all my orchids I want to show you, but last plug of a non-orchid plant that's not the most well known, but this is Acacia denticulosa. I grew it because it's unique foliage, and actually this is a phyllo, this is a modified petiole, and if you listen to how hard it is, let me tap it. And how coarse this is, the common name is sandpaper wattle because it just feels like a sandpaper. And I grew it because people say
that it will flower first year from seed, and of course of the unique foliage. It has been in this pot for about 2 years, where this spring will be the first spring after 2 full years. Um, Last year, no flower, of course, but this year, look at that. Those tubular flower spikes, the inflorescence at the leaf axis. That is so exciting. Like out of all the flowers, this one probably gets me the most excited of all the flowers in my collection. I know I'm partial to it, but I just can't wait. I love it. It has this really vibrant color, yellow colored spikes. Doesn't last that long, but it's such a unique plant, and just something unique that about growing a plant from seed yourself, all the way from the beginning. Not like orchid that you get, even seedlings, but you grow from seed and see a flower. So hopefully those flowers will not abort, and hopefully more spike will push through. But I'm super excited for it.
All right, let me show you one last look at my Clowesia, Rebecca Northen, and Grace Dunn. And yeah, and if you're in the US, most of us will have a really, really cold Arctic blast this coming week. So stay warm, stay safe, and hope all of your plants are doing well. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.